We have severe weather tonight in the western plains. We have dry conditions continuing in the northeast, and also some smoky conditions apparently too. We'll be looking ahead to the weekend. It's a bit of doom and gloom, or gloom and doom in Virginia and North Carolina, and we have a little tropical-like disturbance that's moving through the Gulf of Mexico. We will cover that in such incredible detail that it will shock you tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware. Excuse me. At 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Mulch, topsoil, sand, everything you need. Get your truck over there. 631-756-1125. Nowhere can you find better prices, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing network on the planet. They also have all sorts of other weather gadgets, gizmos, and smart weather fashion. You can find the referral link pinned to the top of the chat board tonight. It's also pinned on the descriptor to this video. If you do decide to purchase something, use the coupon code Joe at Joe Weather Show, because
you get 10, count them, 10% off whatever purchase you make. So make a purchase, get 10%. Don't miss out. Joe.
Very good.
Yes.
Now tell me something, Mr. Ray. First of all, good evening to everybody on the chat board tonight, and welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Usually we start at 7:35 p.m., but tonight we're starting 10 minutes later at 7:45. Don't worry, it's not a habit. We'll be back at 7:35 p.m. tomorrow. We are on Monday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m., Sundays at 11 a.m. Sometimes the schedule changes, and we always let you know about it. Fridays and Saturdays are off unless we have something going on that's of weather importance, and we also will let you know about that. So hit the subscribe button, turn the notifications on, and you won't miss a show. And also, if you like the show, hit the like button, because we like it when you hit the like button. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I was looking at satellites around midday, and I cut my Weather in 5 video, which I put up. And, of course, naturally, as soon as I did, I looked at the satellite loop, both the real tight one and then the wide one, and it says, oh, it didn't look all that smoky today. It looks like there's far less smoke. And, of course, as soon as I did that, it's sure enough, all this white plume shows up everywhere. And I had a few people message me, including Bill Goodman, who said that the smoke was pretty thick in some places. Was it like that by you?
To tell you the gosh darnest truth, I was hardly out. I did. I was on the road for a couple of hours this afternoon, but I really didn't take any special note of what was going on. I do have a message from one of the people on our chat board, Dennis Cassia, who's, I think, making reference. Let's see, what is he saying here? The smoke from the wildfires is so thick here, because he lives in Connecticut, Southwest Connecticut, that the fire marshal had to alert the town.
Well, I just put up the northeastern satellite loop, and you could kind of see it. It came in around early afternoon and just sort of spread out west. It actually came in from the northeast, down from Nova Scotia, at least the way it looks. And
what have the Canadians got against us? We're getting it. First, we're getting it from the west, from Alberta and Saskatchewan. Now we're getting it from Nova Scotia. What did we ever do to you, Canada, to deserve all of this?
Yeah, it was it was just something. And I thought we were starting to see some genuine improvement, because up until now, it's always been about the northwest flow and it coming northwest to southeast. Now we got to worry about northeast flows, I suppose. But at least it was, skywise, in terms of the sunshine, it was a good day from Maine down into, well, I'd say probably down into Maryland and northernmost Virginia and Delaware. The cloud line further south, and this was another question I got, how come we have these onshore winds but we don't have the marine layer? And that's because it all depends on the position of the high. You have the high in the Gulf of Maine, So the fetch isn't really long enough over the ocean when it reaches us, but it is long enough in the Carolinas. Plus, they have lower pressures there to the south, and that's where the frontal boundary is. And you can see where the clouds are. They're down in southern Delmarva, Virginia, and in northern North Carolina. That's where your gloom and doom was today. And we're not going to see gloom and doom anytime soon.
No, it's been amazing. The only thing that may change, I mentioned last night that the backdoor front that's coming on down from Canada and moving across our area later on Friday and Friday evening to put a major, cut significantly into the heat that we're going to see at the end of the week. Yesterday it looked like it could come through dry, but now, well, maybe it might be worthwhile just to cover ourselves to mention that there might be a shower or thunderstorm late Friday or Friday night as the front moves.
Yeah, I'm not on that time frame. I think the front comes through, but it comes through on Saturday.
Okay.
So I'm going no thunderstorms on Friday, nothing.
Okay.
Up in central and northern New England, yes, but I'm thinking Saturday afternoon front cuts through. I mean, unless the speed's off by 24 hours, that's sort of how I saw it. So I mean, at the end of the day, you got to put showers and storms into forecast somewhere, so I put them in for Saturday instead of Friday.
Okay.
All right.
Fine. I'm not going to make any complaints.
All right. Meanwhile, Joe, let's see if they've started this. All right. Christinapedia sent me. This is a YouTube link because you know what, Joe, that phenomena for New York Manhattan Stonehenge is tonight apparently, and
it was last night too.
Yeah, and it hasn't really started yet on this YouTube channel, so they're waiting for what's called Walks in the City.
See
now they're starting. They say their start time is 7:45 p.m. Well, it's 7:53. Okay, so somebody needs to hit the start button on their show.
I will never understand the attraction of this to just simply see the sunset on a cross street, to see it set, between the canyons of New York City. And it happens twice at this particular moment in time in late May. And then when the sun is migrating back south, it'll happen again around the 11th and 12th of July. And there are people, Joe, who actually go out.
Oh, I know. I worked there on 42nd Street. I know.
They stand out in the street, dodging the traffic, to see this. And what is it? It's
you know what it is. The way the entire ball of the sun is actually, if you look straight down. It's a good thing they built those streets the way they did, because if they built them all on different angles, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all. But you see this giant ball coming down. It's kind of all right. I happen to work on 42nd and 2nd. It's 42nd Street and 2nd Avenue in Manhattan, and between 42nd and 1st Avenue is Tudor City, and there's an overpass with a park that goes over 42nd Street. So you have, even you're up, you're up about, I don't know, 75 feet or whatever it is off the street bottom, and you get a really great view. Of course, you're fine. And when it started to catch on in the early 2000s, you'd go up there and you'd see cameras from all over the world. Television cameras are over there to film this. So it was just sort of bizarre. Also, we should mention that it happens in the wintertime, but in the other direction, if you're facing to the east. But the problem is the way Manhattan is. For those of you who've never been to Manhattan before, there's more elevation on the east side of Manhattan than there is on the west side. In that part of Manhattan, so you can't really see the sunrise like you can see the sunset.
Right. So if you get your jollies out of seeing that, I hope you go out and enjoy it this evening or again in July. But to me, it's just like, In that, by the way, the term Manhattanhenge was invented by my boss at the Hayden Planetarium, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, who came up with this about 20 years ago. And
Did he trademark it?
I don't think he trademarked it.
Oh, well,
No,
too bad.
no.
Well, on the other hand, because then we would have had to pay him to say the word on the air.
Exactly.
We don't want to do that. We're cheap sorts. All right. Anyway, let's go back to. I'll check back in a little bit in case that they decide to start that show over there, and we'll give them an extra plug. Here's the watches and warnings map tonight, and we do have a slew of severe thunderstorm watches up in the Western Plains. This is where we're going to be seeing severe weather action today, tomorrow, and the next day. Since it's Tuesday, so it'll be Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night. But you've got watches up from northwest Texas and northeast New Mexico, eastern Colorado, western Kansas, and western Nebraska, all under severe thunderstorm watches, even some flash flood watches up in northeastern New Mexico as well. You can see the air quality alerts in gray in New Jersey, back in southeastern Pennsylvania. I can't tell. Is it up for Long Island? It's up for Massachusetts and Rhode Island, but not for Connecticut. It's not up for Long Island. The light blue is the rip current statement to let everybody know that the waters are, a bit on the rough side. And in and around the Great Lakes, we still have this air quality issue. And on the satellite loop this evening, we're starting to see a breakout of thunderstorms in eastern Colorado. You see them there with all the lightning strikes going on. Also in southeast Texas. And we've got a concentration of clouds in the eastern Gulf of Mexico where low pressure is moving along, and we'll see what Miami has to say about that in a minute or two. The radar is, there you go. We've got a bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings going on and flash flood warnings in West Kansas. One severe thunderstorm warning in northeastern New Mexico. So it's fairly active here. Also active radars in western Nebraska, western South Dakota, through central Iowa into eastern Kansas, seeing some active weather, and in East Texas, where we've got some thunderstorms and a couple of flash flood warnings there. Also in southeast Florida, seeing a concentration of showers and thunderstorms that are moving eastward. Some very light stuff in the southeast. Bone dry, Joe. Bone dry in the northeast on the radar, and it's going to be bone dry tomorrow's Wednesday, so the next 3 days.
Right. The allusion to thunderstorms that you have mentioned for Saturday is in part due to the backdoor front, but I noticed that some of the hand-drawn progs even have a little wave.
Little pop-up?
Excuse me?
For Friday, maybe a late pop-up or two?
Well, there maybe, but I mean, if you want the true catalyst for possible thunderstorms, you're certainly right in that Saturday. That front will be lying just over us, but they also have, on some of the hand-drawn progs, a little wave of low pressure moving through on Saturdays that may actually enhance or accentuate the threat of any kind of shower activity Saturday, or maybe a little convection on Saturday. So we shall see. That's only the start of your first weekend of June. So
it's a little unusual for fronts that are coming in from the northeast to produce showers and thunderstorms. I mean, it's not unheard of, but it is a bit a front like a backdoor front usually is so shallow that, like the one from yesterday. The one from Sunday. Was it Monday? Was it yesterday? Maybe it was yesterday. The backdoor, when it came through, it was basically a wind shift line. There were hardly any clouds with it. There was nothing much to it. Most of the time, backdoor fronts are like that. Or if we go into a marine situation where you get a marine flow, the front comes through and all of a sudden you got all these low clouds and the temperature drops 20 degrees in 2 hours and you go from 70s to upper 40s and low 50s. So you didn't have that either. But this one's a little weird because it's dropping down from the northeast and you're going to have what looks like a band of convection that develops with it.
Call it a side door, not a back door, but a side door.
Side door. All right. I can trap door.
A
A
trapdoor.
trapdoor cold front, yes. Uh, all right, Storm Prediction Center tonight. And they've getting into this is the second day in a row where they started out with a marginal risk in the Western Plains, and the day comes and they have it enhanced. So they have an enhanced risk of severe weather, and you can see the two big severe thunderstorm watch boxes that are up, and a fairly large area of marginal risk that covers the Central Plains and then starts nosing into the upper Mississippi Valley. For tomorrow, the Storm Prediction Center has marginal to slight risk now, again in the Western Plains. This comes with a 2% tornado risk. They didn't have any tornado risk indicated for today's. And then for day 3, or at least they didn't earlier, a marginal risk again in West Texas and eastern New Mexico. So that's the limit of the severe weather action right now, is up in the Western Plains. And let's see, I don't think they're going to have anything other than predictability too low. So for Friday into Saturday, yeah, predictability too low all through the day 4 through 8 time frame. So I wonder whether we might see a I don't know. I don't know if we'll see. We'll definitely see them put general thunderstorms in there. I don't know if they're going to put a marginal risk though.
The fact remains that there is at least a catalyst at the beginning of the weekend for some sort of convection. So I'm sure that they will ultimately, when we get to the Saturday, it's now beyond 3 days, so they're not going to have it yet. But I'm sure we will be at least in some sort of general thunderstorm possibility or coverage for that day, for Saturday. So we'll see.
And the WPC folks aren't impressed, because they have a little bit of a few hundredths over Long Island and southeastern New England, and a few hundredths to attempt in Pennsylvania and up into the Catskills, and nothing anywhere else. So they're looking at this and saying, not a flake, not an ice pellet, nothing.
Well, we'll see.
All right. Big rains for central and south Florida, several to many inches there. And you see that also, that big bubble that they have in the Gulf of Mexico, that's part of this little complex that's moving along. And some decent rainfall amounts too in the southern plains to the central and northern Rockies. A lot of these areas are on the dry side, so that's a good thing too. Several inches possible in northwest Texas and in western Oklahoma. And Frank Scalera, hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you, Frank. Most appreciated. Glad to see that you're unblocked after somebody accidentally put you in a timeout the other day. On to Miami. Oh, here we go. So they got the new tropical weather outlook. An area of disorganized showers and storms associated with the surface trough of low pressure interacting with an upper level trough in the central Gulf. Environmental conditions appear only marginally favorable for additional development over the next several days. Forecast to move across Florida, then emerge to the southwest, Atlantic, blah, blah, blah. 10% in the next 48 hours, Joe, and 20% over the next 7 days. So they're not exactly, and of course, articles all over the place this afternoon. The Hurricane Center's watching the first important system of the season in the Gulf of Mexico. Oh, God. It hasn't even started yet, and it's already making me ill.
Yeah. Well, like I said, if it bleeds, it leads. They're looking for something to stir the pot, so to speak, and this is the best they can come up with. At least we can say that this year, unlike some recent years, we will not have any significant tropical activity in the month of May. We'll have to wait until after the hurricane season officially begins on June the 1st, which will be on Thursday.
That's 2 years in a row that we didn't have a tropical cyclone in May.
Right.
After, what was it, 6 out of 7 or 8 out of 9, something like that?
Right. And there was some very serious talk about moving the beginning of the hurricane season to the 15th of May. And all that talk now has just gone away.
Now, I'm looking at the loop with the lightning strikes, and I'm not really seeing much convection where you have some of the brighter white cloud tops. There's a couple of thunderstorms out there, but nothing crazy. I also don't really see evidence of a circulation, it looks like the high clouds seem to be moving to the northeast rather quickly, while the bottom
Is it
layer
possible?
clouds are moving from east to west. So
Is it
it's
possible the radar that the beams, either from Florida or from Louisiana, are not reaching far enough out into the Gulf of Mexico to detect anything near the
uh, it,
area?
it is
Right?
possible. It's possible. It's possible. It's
It's a
possible. Possible.
possibility.
Possible. It's
Yeah.
possible. Why don't we see if I may put the enhanced one? Do I do the IR veggie? Does that work? Shall we do the IR veggie? I don't know why they call it a veggie. I mean,
Because veggies are good for you.
I suppose. Um, let's see. Let's try water vapor. No. What's a dirty long wave? Let's take a look at that. What is a dirty long wave?
They're picking up on filth.
Well,
The upper,
I'm using that. It's probably I'll have to ask Bill what they mean by that. But obviously, we could see the enhancement here. I mean, there doesn't really look like there's a whole lot going on, even on the enhancement. There's some colder tops out there, but nothing crazy. You should see it up there on the screen now. You see
yes,
it?
thank you, Wikipedia, for telling us 5 more minutes until Manhattanhenge.
Anyhow, what this will do, though, there is quite a bit of thunderstorm activity blowing up in the Caribbean and over Cuba, moving northeastward. You can see the blow up in southeastern Florida. So, you're definitely going to get a very solid moisture flow as this little low develops and moves to the east and crosses Florida and eventually comes out of the other side. So this is definitely going to be the big rain producer that WPC is pointed out in their outlook. And as we take a look at the GFS tonight, you can go forward tomorrow. Still a bit of an onshore flow, but a little bit less, and even more less on Thursday. Is that how you would say it, or lesser?
I'd say lesser.
Okay, yeah, but
More or less?
even more less.
Yeah.
Lesser on Thursday, with higher pressures, kind of sitting overhead, and meanwhile you see all the moisture over Florida. No real well-defined low seems to be coming out of the model out of this. And now here's your front, and you see it there. This is Friday evening. I'm going to switch to the radar view here so we can take a look at what the radar is supposed to look like as opposed to the total precip. And you can see that the storms Friday evening are mostly in Maine, New Hampshire, maybe sneaking down into eastern Mass and into northeastern New York and Vermont. And then those just kind of slide eastward, and then the front moves southeast, and it's got an east-west line of what could be some thunderstorms here Friday afternoon, running right along the coast of Massachusetts, southern Rhode Island, southern Connecticut, over Long Island into northern New Jersey and northeastern Pennsylvania, and then they all of a sudden just drop down into Delaware and into Virginia by the time we get to Saturday evening. And still actually showing some lingering precip here. I thought Sunday would be a pretty good day, and then yet on this run, it kind of wants to get involved with the lower pressures that are off the mid-Atlantic, off the Carolina coast, and it keeps showers around during the day on Sunday, believe it or not, with a northeast wind. I don't know. I didn't quite get that feeling on the 12Z, so I'm going to dismiss this. I'll go back to the 12Z and take a look at what that did. And
If my wife is on the chat board, I'd like to ask a question. What is the dog doing down here with me? The dog has snuck on downstairs.
Warning, warning.
He normally is not in my office. He's sniffing around. I don't care if he sniffs, but if I see the leg go up, that's
different. Well, Sunday on the GFS is mostly sunny, and I believe the European was pretty much the same. So I think that's where I'm going to go with this. And just go with the idea that anything that goes off the Florida coast just gets kicked away to the east-northeast, and we just have high pressure building southward from eastern Canada, and eventually settling down into the Carolinas by the time we get to Monday. Then there's another front that comes through Monday night. And this one has some rather chilly air that comes into the Great Lakes for the middle and latter part of next week. And it actually brings that chilly air all the way down into the south. Chilly is relative to the time of year, by the way. Apparently somebody who posted a comment didn't quite understand that. Okay, took offense to the fact that I mentioned that the GFS had that little blue patch north of Lake Superior.
Right.
Okay, so he got bent out of shape over it. Told and said that you and I need to check in at Shady Pines. So the
or the Shady Rest.
The Shady Rest, yes, which you can. All you have to do is just go to Petticoat Junction. There's a little hotel called the Shady Rest at the Junction.
Petticoat Junction.
It is run by Kate. Come and see her place at the Junction.
Petticoat Junction.
And that's Uncle Joe. He's a moving kind of slow at the Junction. Petticoat Junction.
You know, after B. Benaderet died, and they replaced her with June Lockhart.
Right.
The character that June Lockhart played was Dr. Janet Craig.
Right.
And I am told that there is a flower called Janet Craig. And I guess that's where they got the name from.
Yep. June Lockhart, I think, is 98.
She's still kicking. She's
still lurking about.
Yes.
Check out the upper air, Joe, with this upper high in the east, lower pressures moving across the south, and then the trough that just sort of swings around from the Maritimes Saturday and Sunday and then drops southward off the Gulf of Maine, and then another short wave drops down from Labrador and comes almost straight south. Look at this. This is for Wednesday with this wrapped up cutoff low in upstate New York. This is not a warm look, folks, for the middle and latter part of next week.
No,
it just
not.
Isn't. I mean, this could be like a day where it does. There might be if this is correct, there might be a day where it doesn't get out of the 60s.
Give me sharing capabilities. I'll show you. CPC agrees 100%.
Yeah, hang on a second. Let me get you back on the screen, and then I'll turn the share on. La 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 la.
Incidentally, are you going to tell them about tomorrow night and the fact that you are going to likely be going solo? Or
is this news to me? I didn't know I was going solo tomorrow night.
Of course I told you about this.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
Tomorrow night.
You did not tell me about this.
Tomorrow night, my sister.
No, you need to. You said that was tonight, and you had to go on at 7:45.
Well, 7:45, yeah, because we took my sister out to dinner, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get back by 7:30.
Right, but you didn't say anything about Wednesday.
Well, the reason why
folks,
sister...
hold on, folks. This is our first fight. Okay, go on.
Tomorrow night is a special night at Citi Field, and my sister, who's a big Met fan as well as I am,
all right.
My son. Tomorrow night is Howie Rose bobblehead night.
Okay, you did mention that, but you didn't say it was Wednesday night. You just kind of lumped that with the fact that your sister was coming over. So you didn't mention the part that I was soloing Wednesday night.
Well, you don't have to do it tomorrow night. I mean, you could take
a night. I'll do it. You never cared about me anyway. All you ever wanted was supper on the table. No responsibility. Oh, for God's sake.
Well, Joe,
anyway, you wanted sharing capabilities. You have sharing capabilities. I don't
think I want to share anymore with somebody.
I'm going home to mother.
All right, so let me share.
Go ahead.
Here, I'm going to show you the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the 5th through the 9th of June. That starts next Monday and runs until a week from Friday, I believe. And look at this. The whole eastern seaboard is going to be, the 9th of June is when? The 9th is a week from Thursday. The whole eastern seaboard, the whole East Coast, is under below normal conditions. So we're going to be below normal. And you figure, well, all right, that's for the 5th to the 9th. certainly it'll be over with a little that of normal temperature stretch over the Pacific Northwest, the northern plain states. But no, when we get to the 8 to 14-day temperature outlook, if for nothing else, the Northeast in particular is right smack in the middle of another area of below normal probabilities for temperatures from the 7th to the 13th of June. So it would appear, according to the Climate Prediction Center, that much of the first half of June is going to be cool, man, cool here in the northeastern and eastern United States.
All right. I won't argue with it. I agree. I mean, you look at when we saw what the upper air is doing. That is a chilly pattern, and that trough does eventually pull out after 10 days, and then we get back into a ridge position in the eastern part of the United States, if you want to believe it. So maybe that might match up with what CPC was saying in their 3 to 4 week outlook about it turning warm for the second half of the month. So, today's GFS would kind of go along those lines.
A couple of people on the chat board, by the way, saying, that we're having a spat, you and I, and people are saying, like, well, if Rayo can't be on, why not Renata? That's a good point. Maybe I'll ask her if maybe she wants to fill in for me tomorrow night.
Well, whatever we want to do is fine by me. You go on and go to your baseball game. Go on.
It's not the game.
Yeah, I know. It's to the bobblehead or whatever it is. Go on.
And not only that.
Just go.
Make
sure you don't bring me one,
Not only that, it's not just Howie Rose bobblehead night. It's Howie Rose talking bobblehead night. Apparently, if you pull a string or hit a button on the bobblehead, Howie Rose will say his signature close for each Met game, which is put it in the books. And Joe, I just got to have that.
All right, well, that's fine.
I've got to have a Howie Rose bobblehead.
Speaking of having, do you have Briller Jeopardy?
Yes, I do.
All right, so why don't we do that?
Why don't we? Mr. Briller sent me the questions last night, literally as soon as we got off the air last night. So here it is. And this is on tonight's edition of Briller Jeopardy. Joe and the chat board will tackle the topic. What was the #1 rated TV series of the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s? We'll start with the 1950s. What was the #1 television show of the 1950s?
For the decade?
Yes.
I will say I Love Lucy.
And you would be right.
Okay.
It was I
Love Lucy.
So there you go.
All right.
Now that takes care of the 1950s. How about the 1960s?
Okay, so the chat board should be playing along with this, but for the 1960s, I'm going to say what Christinapedia said. Bonanza. Yes.
You got it. Bonanza. And let me tell you that if you are a fan of Bonanza, and if you watch Bonanza, as I occasionally do, on MeTV, no, excuse me, not MeTV, on TV Land, that before the show begins, they post a special notice saying you should watch this under special viewer participation, because I guess they're afraid that the idea of cowboys and Indians back in the 1960s, perfectly okay, but now because it's not politically correct, they just want to put it out there that it requires discretionary viewer participation if you watch Bonanza. The only thing that requires discretionary viewer participation on Bonanza, in my opinion, was when they sat Hoss down at the dinner table.
Dan Cartwright.
That's exactly. Dan Blocker,
yes. Right. Hoss, all right, Cartwright was their name.
Right.
Joe, right. All right.
All right. The
1970s, I'm going to say All in the Family.
Correct. And so does Luis Orizio said the same thing. Okay, so we got the 50s, the 60s, and 70s out of the way. How about the 1980s?
I'm going to say The Cosby Show.
The Cosby Show is correct. That's
Okay.
right.
Now, after the 1980s, you're going to start to lose me because this is where, you know, I was very much into television, but then, I had got married, had kids, and all the rest of it. And I didn't watch nearly as much TV during the 90s. So I'm trying to think of the shows that were on in the 90s that, you know,
Well,
eh,
Louis Orizio says it was Friends. No, it was not.
not
Carol
Friends, and it wasn't
Carol Deschere,
not
Carol Deschere said
Seinfeld.
MASH, but MASH ended in 1983.
Right. See that, like I said, this is where you start to lose me in terms of the television that was on in the 90s. I don't even remember half the shows that were on. You have to name a couple of shows that were on in the 90s, and maybe that'll
Patrick
stir my memory.
Patrick Dorsey said Seinfeld.
No, too early.
Maggie P. Friends.
No, too early.
Frank Scalera.
Oh,
Everybody.
oh, oh, wait. Was it Cheers?
No.
No? Okay.
Helen Bertona, Dallas. I think Dallas was more of an 80s.
Yeah, Dallas was more 80s. And
Latex Green
so
says
was Dynasty.
No, not Baywatch.
No.
Rick B. It's not Sanford and Son. You're thinking back to the 70s.
I don't think Golden Girls was more like mid 80s to early 90s. I don't know if they would have carried that whole, if you measure it from the decade, I don't think it would be the Golden Girls.
Okay. You want me to give you a hint?
Go ahead, give a hint.
2 letters.
2 letters?
Yes.
The show just has 2 letters in it.
Yeah.
Like AM
Right.
or PM.
Uh-huh. And Maggie P. got it. ER.
ER. Okay, I never would have remembered ER.
ER.
I never would have remembered it.
No.
Okay, so now what about now we're into what, the 2000 to
That's it.
2010?
That's it.
That's it?
1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
When was Hill Street Blues?
Wasn't that in the 80s?
Yeah, it was in the 80s. I just asked that question. When was Hill Street Blues? All right. Well, anyway, okay. So all right, so you're not here tomorrow. If Mrs. Rayo wants to come on, she's more than welcome. So 7:35 tomorrow night, folks, for our show. Joe will be at the Met game having a good time. Right?
Again, it's more the bobblehead than the game.
Yeah, all right.
So far, the back. Oh, I have to get a view of this scoreboard. My sister, who has been to Citi Field already this year, says you've got to see this scoreboard. This is the world's biggest scoreboard. Of course, now the guy who owns the Mets has zillions of dollars, so he can have anything he wants. So,
Yeah, all right. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And you know what? Maybe Joe, he wants a weather station from Tempest by WeatherFlow. But
it would help.
he can get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing network on the planet. In fact, he could get 3 of them. He could put one in right field, one in center field, and one in left field.
Yeah.
And maybe a 4th one that he could put behind the catcher. So if he does, or if you do, if you want to check out some of the other weather gadgets, the link is pinned to the top of the chat board. And if you use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, you get 10% off. And Tempest by WeatherFlow is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And we're also, as always, been brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. For all your hardware needs and for all your outdoor needs, 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. And again, thank you to Frank Scalera tonight for hitting the chat board. Thanks so much, Frank. We appreciate it.
So I'm going to go back and watch Forensic Files, Joe. They had this case. They started it, and then we had the show, so I only watched 15 minutes of it. I completely forgot they were did a show on the last call killer, who was from Staten Island, who was picking up on I completely forgot about this. So this one he was basically picking up gay prostitutes and chopping them up, dismembering their bodies. And before that, they had on. Oh, it was really this one was very difficult to watch. Let me just go run it through you real quick. So this woman's husband, 37 years old, no history of heart trouble, dies. Okay, they find him dead in bed. It was ruled that he had a heart attack. The family of the husband wants an autopsy because the guy had no history of health disease, but the wife refuses to give him the autopsy. All right. She remarries. All right. She remarries. She kills her second husband by mixing antifreeze in his drink. He goes to sleep. He's unconscious, but he's not dead. So she tries to force him to drink some more, and it doesn't work. So she takes a turkey baster, all right, and uses a turkey baster to force the antifreeze, the ethylene glycol, down his throat, and of course he dies. They do an autopsy, and she has him buried next to the first husband's grave. Okay. Anyway, they exhume the body. This of the well, when they do the second husband, they tested, and there were a bunch of things that weren't right because they found the turkey baster, they found this glass with her fingerprints on it, and all the rest of it. Anyway, turns out they found out that he had antifreeze in his system. Then they exhumed the first husband's body, and they found that after he had been dead for like 10 years, the ethylene glycol crystallizes in the kidneys and doesn't go away. So they found that he was also poisoned with antifreeze. But to top this off, just to see how horrible this woman was, she put an overdose. She crushed a whole prescription of sleeping pills, gave it to her daughter as to drink, and the sister finds the daughter unconscious. She writes what's supposed to be the mother writes a suicide note saying that where the daughter says, "I killed both the men using antifreeze." I mean, how sick is that? I was cringing when I was watching all this. Anyway, she didn't get away with it. They figured it out that it wasn't the daughter, that she actually tried to kill her own daughter and frame her daughter for the murder of her two husbands.
And you and folks who are tuned in right now, this is, after all, not just a weather page or a weather information page. We give you everything.
Oh yeah, we're a family show. We cover all ends. By the way, real quick, they're not doing very much on this YouTube channel, but I'll tell you what, I'll put the link up on the top of the chat board. I'll put it in on the chat board here for those of you who want to go watch Stonehenge. They're showing a camera walking down what looks like 6th Avenue, but they're walking in the wrong direction. They'd have to go on the side streets. Why are they going on a north-south roadway? I don't get this.
Rich Rothmansky, by the way, on the chat board, nomination for Mother of the Year.
Oh, I was cringing. I mean, who does that? You try to murder your own daughter and frame her for the murder of the two husbands that you killed with antifreeze? Oh my God. Sick people out there, Joe. There's sick people. They do sick things.
And you're also a big fan of the miraculous Mrs. Maisel, right? Or
the marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
The marvelous.
Yeah, I still have to finish the last season. I still got 4 episodes to watch.
Okay.
And I got to watch it before Friday, Saturday when my youngest daughter's coming for the weekend. So, and she likes the show too. So she always wants to talk to me about it. Anyway. All right. Have fun tomorrow. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Night, everybody.
Night, folks.